Right to vote, a value embedded into the fabric of the United States. But we know, historically, minority communities face obstacles when it comes to voting.
One of those communities, Latinos, who despite being the fastest growing voting bloc in the country, still have some obvious obstacles to overcome. With the general election now just 5 days away, Abby Davis is here to tell us about the efforts to encourage Latinos to vote.
Well, Brian and Morgan, it really just boils down to access and eliminating barriers preventing people from filling out their ballots. Antonio Hernandez says voting is generational.
If you don't have a family that, has done that historically, it's like being the first person in your family to go to college.
Hernandez works with local nonprofits and government agencies to improve voter turnout within underrepresented communities.
If you're a brand new voter and you have never voted, no one in your family's ever voted, you'd have very basic questions around how to vote. Like, what are the requirements? What are the dates? How do these elections impact me? And does my voice actually matter?
One community with a growing voice, Latinos. Latinos are the fastest growing voting bloc in the country. Recent data from the Idaho Commission on Hispanic Affairs shows Latinos make up 13% of Idaho's population and account for 24% of Idaho's population growth over the last decade.
Being able to influence policy is really critical as the largest ethnic minority here in the state of Idaho.
But voting barriers persist. Community activist Maria Gonzalez says language is a big one.
I think the biggest barriers is lack of information and lack of information for those who prefer or need the information in Spanish to have that information in Spanish also.
As for how to deal with that barrier,
the easiest way, starting from the Secretary of State's website, that elections section, it would be great to have that in English and Spanish, right? Because there's a lot of information on that elections website for the Secretary of State.
The Secretary of State's office told me there is no statewide requirement for counties to publish election information in multiple languages, unless that county meets certain demographic requirements reflected by the U.S. Census. Right now, Clark County is the only county in Idaho required to publish election materials in Spanish. Because of voting barriers like language, Hernandez says outreach is key.
Folks who have never voted before aren't getting their door knocked to see if they have any barriers when it comes to getting registered to vote or if they have any questions that need to be answered. So a big part of the resource element is just getting the word out and making sure that people know that there's an election, it's important, and this is how it affects them.
Data shows Hispanic voter turnout increased 6% from 2014 to the 2018 midterm elections. Gonzalez says it's essential to continue that trend to ensure our elected officials in Idaho represent views from every single community.
Well, Abby, as well as those Spanish sections of the Secretary of State's website that they mentioned, there's also another way that you can kind of get over this language barrier, right?
That's right. You can actually bring people with you to the poll places to vote with you. So if you don't speak English very well or just need some assistance, that is also an option.
Fastest growing voting bloc in the United States. Maybe at some point soon they'll have that as a requirement or just something that they implement across the board. All right, Abby, thank you.